Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the final customer success webinar of 2025. The title for today's session is Enhancing Your Workflows in Talis Aspire. I think I know most of you that have registered, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is David Renfrey. I am a senior customer success consultant here at working for Talis Aspire. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Matthew. Matthew, could you just introduce yourself quickly, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I am Matthew Weldon. I'm library patron consultant here at Talis. I recognise a lot of names. Some of you I've met before, some I've only seen on support tickets, and vice versa. But it's great to be here today, and looking forward to running through Talis Aspire with you.
Okay, sorry, I'm just checking the chat because I can see that somebody can't hear, but others are saying that they can. So,
Yeah, I would
apologies,
just
language.
recommend if you're able to check your audio output settings, I'd recommend doing that. I think everybody else seems to be able to hear fine. So, although I realise as I'm saying this that you won't be able to hear me saying it. So I'll put that in the chat, David, if you want to proceed.
That's fine. Thank you, Matthew. I think it's because we've not presented via Teams before, but yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, so today's session, enhancing your workflows in Talis Aspire. What exactly does that mean? So we had a bit of fun with this, and some of you might have read this in the service announcement that we did. We were interested in knowing exactly how many ways you can set Talis Aspire up. Talis Aspire is designed to be a very flexible system. It's designed to enable you to configure it in a way that suits your workflows. And so the slide that I've got here on screen, it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but I think it makes the point well. We have identified about 25 different areas of Talis Aspire where you have a choice on how the system behaves. So today's session is really a sort of high level overview of what all of those different 25 settings are. So you can review if you are using them in an optimum way. I very much doubt, given all the number of customers we have using Talis Aspire, I very much doubt that there are two Talis Aspire tenancies anywhere that are configured identically. So your setup is almost certainly unique to you. We thought this session would be worthwhile because often, when we do an implementation with a new Talis Aspire customer, we will have conversations about the different settings that are available. And then I think once you get going with the system, you start building your workflows, you start integrating it. And I think often those settings don't get revisited. So, it may be that it's just something you want to review, to have a look, to make sure, well, those choices that we made when we implemented 2 years or 5 years or 10 years ago, are they still the right choices for us now? You might also be someone that's inherited responsibility for Talis Aspire after implementation. So we've seen a lot of this in the last couple of years with all the universities currently undergoing restructures. We're talking to a lot of new people who have been given Talis Aspire as their responsibility, and you might not even be aware that you have choices in some of these areas. So yeah, today's session is really a health check on your Talis Aspire setup. What's already working well for you and you can just leave well alone, and which areas might you want to revisit again. Some of the settings we are showcasing today need to be updated by us, and some of those are things which you can alter yourselves. Longer term, we are looking at working at putting more of those settings directly into your hands. But for those settings where we need to make an update on your behalf, if you want to explore changing those after the session, then please do just raise a support ticket. We will share the slides afterwards as they contain many links to relevant support articles if you want to do some further reading. We will also share a PDF in the chat at the end with links to all of the articles that we are highlighting in today's session. So hopefully that's all clear. The agenda for today, those 25 settings that I mentioned a moment ago, we've broken those down under these headings. So, things you can do to change authentication, things you can do around reviews and what have you. There are quite a few slides today, but we don't propose spending much time on each one. It's really just a fairly high level overview that we're presenting today. So essentially the format for today's session is, here is a thing you can change. Here is some information about your options around that. and here's where to find more information. And then we'll just skip straight on to the next slide. So that's how it's going to work today. Do drop your questions into the Q&A or the chat as we go, but we will leave some time for questions at the end as well, if there's anything that anyone wants to ask. So yeah, without further ado, the first of those headings, authentication and permissions. How do people get access to Talis Aspire, and what can they actually do once they're logged in? So the authentication, where you go to log in to Talis Aspire, that is handled by your institution's IDP or your single sign-on service. During your implementation, we will liaise with your institution's IT team to get that set up. However, you do have choices. So the traditional method for granting users access to Talis Aspire is that an administrator will send an invite to a user, then they can only get started with the system once they've logged in for the first time, created a profile, and accepted that invite. We know this can be a barrier for adoption sometimes, where often the first thing you have to do within Talis Aspire is the fiddliest thing. You need to go away and create a profile. So there are a couple of options which you can explore to make this workflow a little bit slicker. We do have a feature called automatic profile. If you implement automatic profile, what we are able to do is take attributes from your institution's IDP so that when a user logs in for the first time, their profile is automatically set up and populated with data that you hold on them. And it's fairly sort of lightweight. It's who they are. So we populate it with their first name and their surname. And if you are using automatic profile, they cannot edit those fields. But it's just a nice way of, it means they click on login, we already know who they are. You can take that a step further with a feature called devolve constraints. So it may be that you have a lot of staff within your institution who need a role within the system. So for instance, your lecturers, and you want to make sure that all of them have the list publisher role. If you don't want to have to send hundreds of invites to all of your academics to give them sort of an invite to that role, then again, your IDP can release attributes to us that allow us to say, this person is a lecturer and so should automatically have the list publisher role and be able to build lists. So again, we're doing away with this sending of invites to people to accept a role within the system. Both of those features that I've just outlined there, automatic profile and devolve constraints, they both rely on us receiving certain attributes from your institution's IDP. So we cannot set them up unilaterally on your behalf. We're going to need some input from you as well. But yeah, if that is something you're interested in exploring, there is more information in those support articles. And as I said, we will share a document with links to all of these at the end. I did say we'd move on fairly quickly. Proxy and open URL. So your proxy and your open URL settings are baked into your Talis Aspire setup. So that is the part of the system that we manage. And what that means is we can automatically apply your proxy or your open URL, your link resolver, as required to relevant links when they are added to a list. So with this example here, check for full text, whatever this item is, we would take the data from within it and fire it against your link resolver. With the available online button here, it may be that you've bookmarked it from a site where you rely on proxy authentication to take the user through. We can apply that automatically so that you don't have to fiddle with the link. So those are things we can set up on your behalf. And then if your proxy base or your open URL provider change at any time, just raise a support ticket with us, and it's very easy for us to quickly update your tenancy settings so that they're using whatever it is you've now switched to instead. With regards to proxy, you do also have the ability to set rules for how and when the proxy should apply to links. So, for example, always apply the proxy to any DOI links that appear in our bookmarks, or always apply the proxy to eBook Central links, or whatever it is. So yeah, as I said a moment ago, this ensures that your bookmarks don't need to be manually edited, as we will automatically sort of prepend your links with that proxy base. Obviously, this really is a bespoke piece of work for each institution because you all have access to different collections and you're all using different authentication methods. But if you would like to explore this further, or you just need a reminder of which rules we've already got in place for you, then just raise a support ticket and we can provide that information. Next slide. This is a bit of a niche one, so I don't think I'll be spending too long on this one. We do have the ability to hide any DOI links that may get captured in the course of bookmarking. So if you are an institution where your preferred linking method to resources that you have bookmarked is either open URL or direct web address, you can hide the DOI link from, sorry, my brain's gone blank. The links that we capture, the DOI link will not be displayed, although you will see that we do still capture it during the bookmarking process for the purposes of citations. There's not many institutions do this, but it might be useful if you're the sort of institution where a lot of your content is hosted in an aggregated collection. So maybe an EBSCO collection or a ProQuest collection. And so actually the DOI is not a good linking method for you because it's not going to take your users to where your full text content is actually hosted. But yeah, if that's something you'd be interested in doing, in switching off that DOI link button, raise a support ticket, we can enable that for you. Still more settings you can change. List privacy. The default for Talis Aspire is that all of your lists will be public. And what that means is they are visible to anyone that is crawling the web. So theoretically, anyone could do a Google for reading lists in your institution, come across them and have a look at the list. Now, obviously, they couldn't get access to any authenticated content because at that point they would get challenged for a login. So, there's no issue there with like keeping your materials safe. But yeah, they would be available to everyone that was on the web. There are pros and cons for that. You might want to have your reading lists available as like an advert for what is available in your institution. There are other institutions that get quite nervous about that would like to have their content sort of hidden, if you like. So the two settings that you can have are public or private. Public means open to everyone. Private means a user will have to log in to your IDP to be able to view the list. The default is currently controlled by us. So what that means is if your default is public, then any newly created list will be made public. If your default is private, then any newly created list will be private. But you do have the ability to change individual lists within that as well. So it may be that you want most of your lists to be private, but you've got a couple of specific lists which you would like to be made publicly available for marketing purposes or whatever. So you do have this ability on how to control who can see which lists. We could also talk briefly about the new tenancy privacy feature, which we released quite recently, and some of you might have seen a service announcement about. Tenancy, if you've got tenancy-wide privacy, what it means is that we're basically hiding the homepage of Talis Aspire so that people cannot come in to your Talis setup and search for lists. When they log in, they will be redirected to the My Lists page as their homepage. So the reason you might want to do that is if you are teaching a course that has particularly sensitive materials, which you would prefer not to be shared even outside the course, let alone the whole institution, or if you have particular concerns about copyright and ensuring that only people enrolled on an individual course have access to those materials, then that might be something you want to consider. What I would say about tenancy-wide privacy is that if that is something you're interested in exploring, you really need to make sure that your students have access to the materials that they need via LTI. Because as I say, there is no way to sort of explore the tenancy outside of what is being presented to them. But yeah, that's something that's been added recently. There is a support article there with more information. Do raise a ticket if you would like to explore that with us. And one more slide in this first section. User permissions. I talked a moment ago about people having the ability to make individual lists public or private. Now, obviously, there are a lot of different permissions within Talis Aspire. So you can see there's a whole load of them on this right-hand side of the screen. And there's a couple of examples there which I've highlighted in red. So when you go to edit a list details, you see things like set license or who can view this list. That's the privacy setting. Well, actually, you might not see them. It depends which role you've got within the system and which permissions are attached to those. So that's two examples of a field where you may or may not see those options depending on what role you have within the system. So typically, most institutions use about 5 roles within Talis Aspire. You might have system admin, you might have list publishers, you might have list acquisitions, you might have list creators, you might have one or two others. And each of those roles will have individual permissions attached to them, which allows you to build a workflow that's going to work for you. You know, what am I comfortable with my teaching staff seeing? What would I like the library to maintain control of? So there is a support article out there outlining how roles and permissions work. If you are interested in changing some of the permissions within your setup, then do just raise a ticket for us and we will get that set up for you. Okay, so that's the first part of the session done. Matthew, I know we said we do questions at the end, but are there any come in so far or?
I don't believe so. I'm just taking a look at the Q&A. If folks have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A rather than the chat because it just makes it easier to keep them all in one place. But nothing so far, David, so you're good to go.
Brilliant. Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so second part of the session, reviews. I think nearly all of you are using reviews within your workflows with Talis Aspire. There may be a couple of people on the call that are not. But for those who aren't familiar, reviews is the part of the system that allows you to build a bespoke acquisitions workflow for your institution. And again, you've all got different processes, you've all got different team sizes. You know, some of you, one person may be doing all the work in reviews, some of you, there may be a dozen people all sort of sharing out the workload. So again, the system needs to be flexible. It needs to encompass all of those different possibilities. And hopefully it does. You have choices around when a review is triggered. So there are 4 different options altogether. There is the option to have your Talis Aspire tenancy set up to either let lecturers request a review or publish a list. And basically you are giving the lecturer the choice there, you know. Do they want to publish a list without troubling the library? And then they can request one if they, you know, if they feel the need or not. You also have a workflow called review and publish with reminder, which is basically very similar, except that at the point where the lecturer goes to hit publish, they will see like a piece of text saying to them, hey, you might want to request a review against this list. This will help the library make purchasing decisions and so on. There is a workflow called force review. When that happens, the lecturer won't actually see a button like this at all. What will happen is, at the moment that a member of teaching staff publishes a list, it will generate a review in the back end of Talis Aspire, whether they have asked for it or not. The final workflow is one called review only, where you don't actually allow your lecturers to publish lists at all. What you allow them to do is to create them, to edit them. When they are finished, they then send the list for review to the library. The list is then not made public and so, you know, available to students until the library has completed the review. Some of you may have heard me use this line before. I am not going to sit here and tell you which of those 4 workflows you should be using, because honestly, there are pros and cons for all of them. At the most liberal end, review and publish or review and publish with reminder, you are giving your academics more freedom to do what they want within the system. You're sort of giving them one less step, if you like, one less thing to worry about. At the upper end, like forced review or review only, you're giving the library more control. So you're seeing things as they are added to the system, or in the review only case, you know, you're not even allowing students to see them until you've had a look. So you've got more control over what is available to users, but you're also creating more work for yourself. And if you're a small team and you've got a bottleneck of reviews at the start of term, that might be a problem. So yeah, I am not going to sit here and tell each and every one of you which one you should be using. There are arguments for each of them. But we just want to make you aware that if you've been using the same reviews workflow for 6 or 7 years, there are options, there are alternatives. So that article will tell you more. Once you're into reviews themselves, most of you that are using review stages. Not all of you, but most of you. And so the stages allow you to specify a number of steps a review could pass through. So, someone is going to come in and review the metadata, someone is going to go and check the stock levels, and so on and so forth. These are entirely configurable, and you can update them at any time as you change or refine your processes. So again, if you're someone that's new to Talis Aspire, you've inherited a set of stages from your predecessor, and you're beginning to explore the system and think, actually, I'm not sure these work for me. You can change them. Raise a support ticket with us. We will say to you, okay, what do they need to be? What would you like to call them going forwards? And we can make that change for you. One word of warning from our point of view, if you do want to change your review stages, particularly if you're looking at removing an existing one, we would ask you to make sure that you don't have any open reviews in that stage before we delete it on your behalf. It just causes us sort of data issues, if you're removing something that is currently in use. So if, for example, you had review metadata, you wanted to remove that stage, make sure that you have no reviews sitting in that stage before you raise a support ticket with us. You can also request a default stage. So it may be that when lists are sent for review, you would like them all to go into the review metadata stage by default. Or maybe you don't. Again, the choice is up to you. But there's more information on the article. Raise a ticket with us. In the same way that you can alter the stages, you can also alter the outcomes that you are using in reviews. Outcomes are applied to an item that you've just reviewed to indicate a decision taken. So this is on order, it's to be ordered, existing stock sufficient, whatever it is. But like the stages, these can be updated at any time. So you may decide you don't have enough outcomes, you want to be more granular in what you're doing. You may decide that you've got too many and actually you want to get rid of them just to streamline this workflow a bit. But the process is the same. Raise a support ticket with us. Tell us what those outcomes need to be and which order they need to appear in, and we will get that set up for you. And you can have as many or as few as you require. A little bit more on reviews. We have a book supplier integration or multiple book supplier integrations within the reviews interface. All of the book suppliers that we integrate with are listed on the right hand side here. And as you'll know, if you work on reviews, when you go into the suppliers tab, what these will do is display to you pricing for items from those different suppliers. If you stop using any of those suppliers at any time, we can remove it for you. If you start using any of these suppliers listed on the right and they're not already displaying in your reviews area, raise a support ticket. We will get it set up for you. If you are using a supplier which is not listed on the right hand side here, but you think you would benefit from having it available in Talis Aspire, please raise a support ticket with us. We will speak nicely to our product team. They may not thank me for saying that. But yeah, we can certainly have a conversation with different suppliers about having, different pricing information displayed within that area. And final slide from me for the moment before I hand over to Matthew. When a review is requested, the default setup for Talis Aspire is that an email like this one on screen will go to everybody that holds the library acquisitions role within Talis Aspire. So it's an email saying, hey, there's a new review and there's a link there to take you to that review. They don't have to go there. They can go to wherever you want them to go to. So if you don't want the default, which means everyone with that role within the system, tell us where those emails need to go, and we will get that set up for you in the back end of your Talis Aspire tenancy. It might be one inbox, it might be multiple inboxes, it might be a shared inbox that a team of you have all got access to. But yeah, you have control over where those alerts go so that people know there's an action required from them. And for now, that's all I want to say, because I think I need to hand over to Matthew, who's got the next section.
No worries, David. And just before we do, there are a couple of questions in the Q&A that might just be good to tackle now.
Uh-huh.
Nick has mentioned that he has the highest level of access to the system, but he can't view user permissions within a list, and has asked why that might be.
User.
So can't see the permissions assigned to a role. I think what's possibly best in that case is to raise a support ticket with us at support@talis.com, and we'll be able to take a look into that for you. Unless David has anything to add on that.
Sorry, I've just found the Q&A. I'm just looking now. Nick, you can see, so if you go to an individual profile, you can see what permissions that user holds. If you mean, show me all the people that have access to this list to edit, and I'm hoping I'm understanding you correctly here. No, there is no current easy way to do that at the moment. But I do notice we've got at least one member of the product team on the call today, so I'm sure they will be taking notes.
Lisa's question is a really good one as well.
Yeah.
Any plans to add Cortex as a book supplier integration?
I think the most honest answer I can give at this point is watch this space.
I didn't want to avoid the question, but I thought your answer might be along those lines, David. But I know we talked before the meeting about me taking control of the slides, but I wonder if I could just ask you if I could get you to move us through just for technical reasons behind the scenes, if that's all right. So yeah, if you can move us on to the next slide, David, I'll be talking about some of the stuff that you can do self-service, basically within Aspire without needing any input from us. The first of which is importances. So selecting an importance, as you'll be aware, for an item, it's a useful way of guiding your students. It can also be a really useful way of informing the library about, potential acquisitions that they might have to make. These importances are entirely within your control, and you can set them. So David, if you click, there should be a wee animation that plays. Just click anywhere and it should. So this is what it looks like when you're adding a new importance to your tenancy. You can specify where that appears within the list and name that importance kind of whatever works for your institution. What you'll also see below there is a little checkbox to make it active or not. Basically, once you've added an importance at the moment, if you want to remove that from being available, you can unclick that option to have it active rather than delete it outright at the moment. And still on the topic of importances, the next slide is to do with mandatory importances. So if you would like it to, whenever an academic adds a new item to a reading list, if you would like to make it mandatory that they have to set an importance for that entry, you can do that. Now, in terms of getting that active for the first time, that does require a bit of input from us, but it's as easy as just sending us across a support ticket and we'll be able to help you with that. After that, it's within your control. You can also choose whether or not or rather, sorry, what you can set it up so that when an academic is publishing a list that already has items on it that don't have importances set, that they get that reminder. They will be able to bypass that by hitting publish at that point, but any new additions to the list, they'll be prompted to set an importance before adding it. And on the next slide, we are talking about branding. So many of you will be already be aware that your tenancy can basically be branded to match your institutional requirements. But I think it's possible that for many of you, you will find that, or for many of you, you probably won't have looked at the branding since it was set up, or it may not be something that you've had to actively do since your implementation. So if there's anything within your tenancy that you're looking to rebrand to bring up to date with any changes that have been made since that's happened, you can do that. You can give, you can set your system name on its own. Reading list is the example that's provided here. You can change your institutional logo. You're also able to change what that logo links out to. So if a user goes on and clicks on that logo, where are they directed to? If you don't set anything for that, it'll just take them back to the top level homepage of your Aspire tenancy. You'll also be able to upload a maximum of 5 different header links, and you can assign those a label and a link to which a user clicking on them will be directed. And that's what you're able to do through the branding console. And the last thing in this self-service section is Talis Engage, which is on the next slide here. Thanks, David. So you can choose whether or not to set up Talis Engage for your tenancy. Talis Engage, if you're not aware, is our social annotation platform that integrates directly with your Aspire reading list. So if you activate Talis Engage for your tenancy and you set it to allow uploads of files to reading lists, individuals will be able to go in, and when certain resources are added to the list, they'll be able to add a PDF copy of that. You have control over whether that's allowed or not as a library, and you can also manage how you deal with the copyright for that. So for resources like books and journal articles, where it's possible to set up sort of an automated copyright check, you can determine what is able to be uploaded and not. And the options that you have available to you are you can require any books or journal articles that are uploaded to have an ISBN or DOI attached for that automated copyright check. You can allow your users to upload books and journal articles regardless of whether there's an ISBN or DOI attached, if that's in keeping with your kind of copyright practices at your institution. And you can also prevent those from being uploaded at all if you're not comfortable with the copyright implications of doing that. Then you also have control over whether other resources that don't meet those copyright clearance requirements, so if they're not a journal article or a book, basically, whether or not those can be uploaded. So that would include images, videos, audio files, that sort of thing. Sorry, not images and videos, images, documents, and audio files. And you're able to customize whether that is allowed. And that's what we've got for your self-service options. I want to talk a little bit about bookmarking now, which is the hot topic, obviously, as we come up to the switchover of the new bookmarking workflow in January. But I want to talk about some slightly different elements to bookmarking. So if, David, you're able to take us to the next slide, you will be aware that articles can have DOI links, they can have web addresses, or they can have open URL links attached to them. When that bookmark is being made, you can have, or rather, for new bookmarks that are being made, you can specify which of the possible links that the online resource should take the student to. So you can set up whether you want DOIs, web addresses, or open URLs to be included in those bookmarks. If you don't set a preference, the button will use the first link that's found on the resource. You're also able to set the priority for which of those available, so DOI, web address, or open URLs, which is the priority, which you would prefer if all of those are available to use to direct users. And there's also a slide here on open access bookmarks. So you'll see there up in the top right hand corner that this resource has an open access tag associated with it. So If you choose to enable that open access workflow, which is entirely, again, within your control, you'll just need to let us know if you want that set up or not. You can surface open access alternatives for items if they are found, and we use the unpaywall database for that. So if we find that this resource is available as an open access resource, we can provide an open access link to that. And you can see just there under library availability, we have 2 available online options and an open access option as well. So again, that's within your control. You'll just need to let us know via a support ticket if that's something you want set up that you don't have already. And there are quite a few email fields within Aspire that we can help you with. If we go to the first one here, David, we've got the feedback form. So you'll be aware that there's the option for users to provide feedback on Aspire within your tenancy. You can customize the email address to which those are sent. So David's got an example bit of feedback here for us. That will be sent to the email address that you nominate, and we'll also receive a copy of that as well. And on the next slide, we have the being able to report a broken link. So if there's an item on your reading list that isn't, for whatever reason, taking students to where they expect to go, for example, maybe the resource has been moved and something hasn't been updated, they're getting a 404 error or something like that when they're trying to access the resource, you can choose where those reports go. We've also recently made it so that the default is now for a student's details to be captured at that point. Again, that's within your control, but we have heard from, for example, an attendee at a recent Insight event that we held, that it's been much easier to reach out to the student in question since that switch was made. So you may want to consider whether or not you keep that active or not, but if it's active and if we are capturing your student details, it will make it easier for you to get in touch with them once a resolution has been found. And now we have the kind of miscellaneous, random, assorted customizations that you're able to make within Aspire. The only theme being there is no theme here. So you can customize the bookstores that are available within bookmarks. So the trend in recent year has been to switch this off, admittedly, but we do support several bookstores that are available to you. You can see a full list of those that are available through that link at the bottom there. And as mentioned in the chat earlier, we'll share we'll share a document that contains a link to each of these slides as well. You can toggle on a Google Books preview. So for books with an ISBN, this provides a sort of preview of the material on the list. You can toggle that on and off at the tenancy level, and that's something that we can do for you. If you want that activated or you want it turned off, just raise a support ticket and we'll be able to help with that. The text that appears, the license text that appears at the bottom of all lists, that can be customized to fit your needs. Access to this feature is controlled by a permission, so you may want to choose whether or not list publishers have access to that function or not. Again, that's something that we can help you with. But a full suite of license options is available, whether that's for it to be in the public domain, whether it's all rights reserved, or whether it's Creative Commons licenses. If you're not sure kind of what's appropriate for yourselves or not, again, you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to help with that. But yeah, that's another thing that's within your control. Citation style. Some of you might have received some emails from us recently with regards to citation styles. Basically, the long and short of it is if your citation style is in Zotero, we can use it. If you have a custom style that you'd like to see within Aspire, if you're able to add that to the shared Zotero database and let us know, we can make use of that, and we can also customize the title of any styles as they appear within Aspire. Some institutions have just chosen to go with the standard kind of array that we use, which I think are probably covered by those that are on screen at the moment. That's probably the kind of standard citations that you use. But basically what this
And a
will...
few more, Matthew.
Oh, and a few more. Sorry, there are a couple more that will be included as standard. Basically, what that allows your users to do, though, is they can go into a reading list, they can choose the citation style they'd prefer to see, and each of the entries on that list will be sort of customized to be presented in that citation style. If there's anything in particular that you really want to see at your institution, if you have a very particular requirement that you want to see, and that's available within Zotero, we can help you with that. But all you have to do for that is just let us know, and we'll be happy to help. Time periods. Time periods are entirely configurable, not within self-service at the moment, but if you raise a support ticket, let us know what time period you want set up, the name of that time period, the actual time period itself, what date it should run from and to. This is pretty customizable in terms of, or it's pretty... there's a diverse way that people tend to use it. It can be in terms of the full academic year. It can be for terms or semesters. It can be one perpetual time period. It's completely within your gift to choose how you set that up. You can specify your own dates, and you can have as many or as few as you wish to have running concurrently. What we tend to see is that year to year, new time periods are set up. You'll get in touch with us, and when we set those up, you can also let us know, and here are the ones that we no longer want to have access to, and we can do that housekeeping for you. So do just keep us posted on what you want to see, and if you again have any questions about that, do let us know. And the very last slide that I have to go through with you here is on the text that is pulled through by LTI whenever you are creating new entries within the VLE. So we can adjust that text. We're able to, again, we do that for you. If you want to change the list, I think at present it defaults to Talis Aspire if you haven't set up an alternative. But if you want to get that alternative set up, all you need to do is shoot us across a quick message, and it's very simple for us to do that. So if you want to change it to reading list, or you want to change it to the custom name that you have for Aspire within your institution, we can do that. So yeah. Shoot us over a message if that's something that you'd like to see, and we'll be happy to help. And that's the end of my section. David, I don't know if there are any questions that came through while that was ongoing, or have you kept on top of those for me?
Yeah, there's a couple I'd like to address.
No worries at all.
From Nick, is the linking accessing preferences via support ticket? Nick, yes, it is. But it's a very easy update to make from our end. And a question from Phil, would the support desk be able to supply a complete set of our configuration settings? I mean, it's your data, Phil, so I think the answer has to be yes. Would probably need to go away and spend a little bit of time collating those. But yeah, I mean, we often get asked, can we just clarify what link resolver base we're using, or, what your endpoint you're using, or whatever. So short answer, yes. Okay, so I'm going to do the last bit, and we left digitizations till last deliberately because not all of you are using our copyright module, or you may be using the DCS, in which case most of the sort of configuration changes happen at the DCS end rather than ourselves. But yeah, if you are using TADSI or Talis Aspire copyright clearance when you joined us, probably governs what you call it, you do have a few options available to shape the workflow. The point I always make here is that because TADSI is designed to keep you compliant with the CLA's HE license, we are a little constrained in what we're allowed to do with it, because ultimately, we have to ensure that the system you are using is going to help you meet your obligations under the terms of the CLA license. But we have tried to offer a little flexibility in how the system behaves within what is permitted. And all of these are available to you through the settings area in TADSI, so you can manage these yourselves. So you have a degree of control over the concierge. You know, when you make a request and you see all of those checks happening in the back end of TADC, you do have a degree of control over how the system behaves in those circumstances. So you've got things like the not in library setting. You'll know that one of the conditions of the CLA HE license is this should be something you own. So should a request get made for something that you don't have in stock, what do you want the system to do in that situation? Do you want to reject the request straight away? Do you want to accept it anyway? Or do you want to refer it to the library to take a look and make a decision? Same thing goes for newer edition available. If someone has requested edition 4 of a book and we're now up to edition 6. Now, I know that in previous iterations of the CLA license, you were expected to use the latest edition. And I know that that's been relaxed a bit over the last few years. And now it's just considered good practice rather than being, you know, like a necessary thing. We're still leaving that check in. We know that some of you still like to have a look about whether there is a newer edition available or not. So again, you can decide what should the system do in that situation. Should it refer it to the library? Should it reject it? Or should it just let it through anyway? Same thing goes if we do a search for a book that's been requested and we find that you have an ebook. You may think, well, if we've got an ebook, what's the point of scanning it? You know, we'll just let students use the ebook instead. But of course, all of you know as well as I do that sometimes ebook restrictions mean that that's not practical. You know, if you've got a book with 3 concurrent users and you've got 60 students on the module, perhaps scanning a chapter is the way to go. So again, you've got some measure of control there over what the system should do should it encounter that scenario when it's running all of its copyright checks against a scan request. You've also got a degree of control over how items are uploaded and downloaded. So again, these are settings available to you now. Protect request dates. Most people tick this box. What it means is if I have requested a scan for an item that's on a list within the current time period, use those time period dates as the start and end date for the scan. But you can choose to turn that off and let academics request their own dates for when things should be available. You've also got a needed by date field when somebody makes a scan request. Do you want to make that mandatory or not? So do you want to force them to tell you this is when I need this by, or do you just want to leave it blank? And as scan requests get made into the system, your library team will deal with them as they come in. This is one of my favorite ones. Allow requesters to supply self-scanned copies. Most of you set it to no. What that means is if I'm an academic and I request chapter 4 from this book, if I happen to have a scan lying around for that particular title, are you happy for me to upload it when I make the scan request? And then should that request pass all checks within the CLA workflow, it will go live straight away. So there are benefits for doing that. However, most of you, I think, are of the opinion the library should be in control of the scanning. We will ensure it is a quality scan. We will ensure OCR is applied and what have you. So if you set that to no, what you're saying is, no, the academic cannot provide the scan. The library will take control of that. And then the final setting is how you want students to be able to access the scans that you've made available to them. You can put a warning message up, which will basically say, you know, if you're not enrolled on this course, you should not be printing or downloading this. And we did agree the wording for that a number of years ago with the CLA, so it is enough to cover you under the terms of the license. You do have the ability to implement a thing called devolved entitlements, which means that only people that are registered for that module code will have the ability to print or download that scan. But again, at that point, we're in a conversation with your IT team, and that's only going to work if you can reliably supply that information to us from your IDP. But you have choices over what happens when someone makes a request and how students can interact with those scans that are made available. You do have the ability to insert stages into the digitization process. So in the same way that you can add stages to your reviews process, you can do the same for the scans. You know, at the point when a copy is pending, maybe I need to assign this to Laura to pick up or assign this to Emma to pick up. If something needs to be acquired, we can decide whether we're going to purchase this item or whatever it is we want to do. So these can be set up by you in the back end of TADSI and will make it clearer to people working on scans what the next step is. Truthfully, I don't get many inquiries about these. I suspect that many of you are not using them, but if you are scanning a large number of digitizations every year and you want to make it a bit more granular so everyone is clear what the next step is with a scan, that's something you can do. And the final slide, I think we're doing okay for time. Again, this is a setting that you can change yourselves. If you are using TADSI, there is a dictionary in the back end of the system. So when people are making requests within Talis Aspire, there are any number of scenarios that may occur when a scan request is made. It may be that that scan passes all copyright checks and can go live straight away. It may be that you don't own a copy. It may be that the CLA API was unable to find it based on the information that you provided. It may be you've had a request for a publication that is not covered by the CLA license, and so you're not permitted to scan it. And of course, each of those different scenarios generates a different message to the end user. But you have the ability to edit those messages with the dictionary feature in TADSI, so that what you could do is make the message that goes back to the end user more meaningful to them. Now, obviously, we've had to keep them generic because we're just saying, here is what has happened within the terms of the license. But if, for example, your workflow was, sorry, we cannot service this at this time, please email this address at the library for more information, then you could tailor your messages so that the academic knew what to do next. So you do have a measure of control there in what the end user sees and what next steps are. We did say it was high level. We've got through 39 slides in about 50 minutes there, which I think is pretty good going.
39 slides and 33 slides and 33 million different combinations. So
apparently, yes. And we don't have that many customers, so there must be new ones possible out there.
So we don't have much in the way of new questions at the moment. I know that Nick had some questions, but he's also said that we can reply offline, as I think he's had to leave. But if anyone else has any other questions, do send them over just now. I think probably the only other thing for us to say, David, is that I know that we've talked a lot there about some of these settings are within our control and some of these settings are within your control. But regardless of which, if you're not sure if it's yours or ours, or if it is yours but you can't quite find where to do it or anything like that, you need advice, then as ever it's support@talis.com and we'll be more than happy to help however we can with it.
Okay, I am just monitoring for questions. What I am also looking for, it's not giving me the option to upload that PDF we promised at the start of the call.
Don't make us into liars, teams. Let me see if I can. No, I think you're right. I think we don't actually have the option to share files this way.
Okay, so what we will do, everyone, when we send out the recording of this in the next day or so, we did compile a document with links to all of those support articles that we have mentioned.
We promise.
We did. It's sitting on my desktop. And yeah, we will get that sent out to all of you with the recording in the next day or so as well. I am just checking the chat and the Q&A one final time. Yeah, Nick, we will follow up. I gather you've gone. We will follow up with you after the call. But okay, if there are no questions, then I think we will look to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon. Hopefully it's been useful for you. Yeah, we will look out for a tsunami of support tickets with people looking to change their settings after the call. And if it's not too soon, there's only 15 days to go. Wish you all a Merry Christmas and look forward to seeing you all next year.
I did suggest that as it was the last session of the year, David should round us out by singing Auld Lang Syne, but he said no. So yeah, have a good holiday, everyone.
Nobody needs to hear me singing, Matthew. Thank you, everyone. Take
See you
care.
later.